Live from the Geico OutKick studios, we're about to be joined by the awful, the miserable, the eternally Grinch-laden Joel Klatt here on OutKick, as we are every single Monday as we break down everything college football. Joel, I'll start right here. You've got, in theory, Michigan-Ohio State, one of the iconic rivalries in all of sports. It got thrown into a total uncertainty with Michigan having to cancel their game against Maryland. I know it's Monday, and there's tons of things that can happen on any given week. But when do you fly to go call this game, and what will your preparation be? Will it be different, if at all, from a normal Michigan-Ohio State game?
No, I mean, it won't be different from my perspective. I'll travel out the same day. I'll travel out Thursday. Normally, this is Thanksgiving.
That's
actually,
right.
I used to travel out a little bit early. We would have Thanksgiving as a family on Wednesday, and then I would leave early Thursday morning. Now I'm going to leave kind of the normal time I always do, which is right around lunchtime on a Thursday. I'm just going to prepare for the game as it currently stands. I will tell you that, as I've done a few different times during the course of the season, I'll have another game in my back pocket. And this is not inside information at all. This is pure speculation on my part after what Barry Alvarez said last week about, listen, we're going to find a way to get Ohio State either via a change of rule into the Big Ten championship game or some avenue. I think that if Michigan cancels, there's a good chance that they would find them another Big Ten opponent in order to fulfill that sixth game. So I'm going to have a couple of teams in my back pocket that I'll study for a couple of hours this week, Clay. One of them will be Maryland. And we'll go from there. But, I'm at this point, I'm going to remain optimistic, and I'm fully prepared for Michigan to get to a point where they can play, and I hope that they can.
If I told you right now, here's my prediction for the college football playoff: Bama, the 1 seed, 2 seed Clemson, 3 seed Ohio State, 4 seed Notre Dame. Would you buy or sell that as the most likely foursome in the college football playoff?
Yeah, I'd buy that. I would absolutely buy that. I think that's at least at this point, that's what I expect to happen. I don't think A&M has been dominant to a point where you can legitimately say that they deserve to be in this race. To be honest with you, right? And in a conversation with a Notre Dame or even an Ohio State, which I think would be a little bit even more of a reach. So I think that you're absolutely on the right track. The only other team that I think could be thrown in there is Cincinnati, and I just don't think that the committee is going to give them a shot, in particular if we get Alabama as an undefeated, Ohio State as an undefeated, and Clemson as an ACC champion.
How great was Coastal Carolina and BYU being able to put together that game? And I know there's BYU fans listening to us right now that are like, man, it stunk the way we lost. But to me,
Sure.
You actually give so much credit to those guys. First of all, I know we've talked about this. For BYU having made the decision to play a game when everybody else in the Mountain Time Zone and play a season, when everybody else in the Mountain Time Zone and Pacific Time Zone were saying, hey, we're not going to play. That to me felt like an incredible performance by them in general. And then to put this game together, drive their stuff all the way from Utah, get it out to Conway, South Carolina, to right there at Myrtle Beach, basically, and to have that game come down to literally the final play. It was incredible.
I loved it. It felt like the schoolyard, man.
Yeah.
And I think if nothing else, I think that BYU has endeared itself to the larger college football community this year, and I think it's been a program ostracized for a number of different reasons. And people, just kind of don't pay attention to BYU as much. And I think to your point about not only, maintaining the season before in August, before games were played, as the only team in the Mountain Time Zone or even, west of the Mississippi, really, if you look at it, outside of the Big 12. I think that they've endeared themselves. This was awesome.
Yeah.
I know I argued on their behalf last week that they should be in the top 10. Everyone's like, oh, how dare you say they should have been in the playoff race? Never said they should be in the playoff race as much as I thought that they should have been in the top 10 and given more respect by the committee. I think that we get lost in this in these two different conversations, and I think this has to do with the game last week, and it has to do with what these teams are moving forward, both of them. So we get lost in this issue where we don't really have a set criteria. Some people rank teams based on who they think is going to win that week. Some people rank teams based on what the teams deserve via their resume. Some people rank teams based on who they just think is better, and then injuries play a factor, and all this in all these different ways that you can kind of rank teams, right? Head to head versus not head to head versus all these, on the road, blah, blah, blah. And I was arguing that I thought BYU last week deserved to be ranked higher. And I still feel that way about last week. And listen, they went out there and they accepted the game, and Coastal beat them. And I really wanted to rank Coastal higher than what I ranked them. I ranked them just outside of my top 10. But I think that these teams deserve a fair amount of respect from the larger college football community. I really do. And I've come around on this because, Clay, as I've told you, I mean, you're an elitist in general, which bothers a lot of people, including me. But I
don't even think I'm an elitist. Yeah.
Oh, you're absolutely an elitist. You always talk about your law degree and everything. Everyone pukes when they're listening to you, and it's fine. But I will just I'm a big conference snob. Admittedly so, and I have been for a long time. It's probably because I played in a larger conference, and I understand how much more difficult it was to do that versus play in a Group of Five conference. And so I've always given the benefit of the doubt to the larger conference team. And having said that, I don't know if I'm getting soft in my old age. I don't know what it is. I'm starting to get frustrated that there's no avenue for a team to get to the level where they can even compete, right? And I'm like, and everyone's like, well, Georgia would beat Coastal. Yeah, you're probably right. You know what? You're probably right, Georgia fans and Indiana fans and Miami fans and A&M fans and Florida fans. You're probably right. Coastal would probably be a 500 team in the SEC. But I'm just starting to sit here and look and pause and say, what are we doing, right? So we either need to give them a legitimate avenue to compete for a national championship or break them off, Clay, and let them have a national championship of their own, right? But the fact that we're playing basically these two divisions of college football together, I think needs to be addressed. Either give them an avenue or let them go and have a different style of national championship that I think a lot of people would be interested in.
What's fascinating, Joel, is what is the story of the NCAA tournament? It is that everybody roots for all of the upsets to happen, right? That's what makes the NCAA tournament so great. And honestly, most people
what makes
would
the
say
first weekend great.
That's
right.
Yeah, the NCAA tournament.
We love the second weekend because the regional final games are amazing, right? And we get really good programs. It's Duke, Kentucky with Christian Laettner, right?
right.
The tournament gives you everything. It gives you monsters competing against each other, and it gives you the Cinderella story. So the only reason I'm pushing back, and I interrupt just because I'm a bad guy, but the only reason I'm pushing back is this notion that the NCAA tournament is all about the Cinderella, I think is false. The regional games we love when monsters collide for a chance to go to the Final Four. The Final
That's
Four
correct.
is amazing because it's monsters colliding. We love monsters colliding in sports. We want to see the best teams compete with one another. I think that what's frustrating is that we don't even get a chance to see these teams have a shot. So I'll just go back to my point. I'll reiterate it. We either need to separate the Group of Five out and say we should have a Group of Five national championship and a Power Five national championship, or we need to give them legitimate access to this playoff, which right now I really don't believe that they have one.
Don't you think that given all the constraints that the athletic departments are under, that 8 teams, at least for the college football playoff, is going to be a reality as soon as next year? Because I think it is, and I think that's important for college football because the playoff, and we have 6 or 7 years of data now from the college football playoff, it's basically turned into the same teams, right? And that making the college football playoff is such a big recruiting tool that Clemson's going to be there almost every year right now. Bama's going to be there almost every year right now. Ohio State, maybe an Oklahoma, maybe you get another SEC team that cycles up like LSU or an Auburn has. But by and large, it's basically the same 6 or 7 teams that are in the mix every year. And if you compare it, say, with the NFL sells hope. You know, your team may be bad one year, but the next year you can make the college football playoff. To your point about the BYUs or the Coastal Carolinas or the Cincinnatis of the world, we don't sell them hope at all, but we're not even selling very much hope to hardly anybody in college football, where it feels like a tiny, segment of the college football universe even really feels like they have a chance to make the playoff.
You know what's really fascinating about this? I've thought a lot about this. When we used to just crown a champion based on polls at the end, I'm talking about before the BCS.
Yep.
There were more teams with hope. And I'm not talking about ultimate hope, okay? So bear with me for a moment here. College football used to feel bigger because there were more things in the postseason that meant a lot to schools around the country. The Rose Bowl meant a great deal. The Orange Bowl meant a great deal. Winning a Sugar Bowl meant a great deal. Winning divisions meant a great deal. All these different things programs could build on. And now we've stripped it down to where there's only one thing that you can measure yourself on, and only 4 teams get to participate in that. And so what you've seen is a gigantic separation within the Power Five of teams that can actually compete at that level and teams that cannot. And I think that we need an adjustment. I don't know what that is yet. You asked about the expansion. I do think that expansion is going to come. I don't know how I feel about it just yet, because I do feel like the Power Five conferences are going to turn it into an auto bid for their champion. And I have mixed feelings about that. I really do. But they are going to grow it, and they are going to grow it based on one reason primarily, but not only. But the primary reason will be the loss of revenue from this COVID year. Remember, the NFL has not canceled a game for one reason and one reason only, because they make millions upon millions upon millions of dollars every time the ball is kicked off. Yep. Okay, so they are a volume business in television. They need every single game televised because that's where they get the lion's share of their revenue from as an entity. College football, that's not the case. The lion's share of revenue for most programs, but not all, but most programs, still comes from their gate. Okay, so the programs are suffering huge, right? Their television deals with their conferences are large, yes, but they're still somewhere in the 40 to 50% range of what the overall revenue for the program is. And I'm talking about even massive ones like Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Texas, these ones. Texas is going to lose 60, 65, $70 million this year just on their gate. Any program that has 85,000 or more seats is losing a massive amount of money. The only way to recoup that, Clay, is to not only have the playoff this year come hell or high water, but expand it in future years and maybe get a second partner in, whether it's Fox or somebody else, that comes in and also pays top dollar, very much similar to the NFL deal where all the networks are paying top dollar, and then you can start to distribute some of that revenue that teams and leagues were not expecting as of this year.
You also get every network promoting, right? One of the reasons why the NFL is so big is because they've been so smart. NBC, CBS, Fox, ESPN, ABC, they give a little bit to everybody. And so there's a huge incentive for all of those different places to be promoting as much as they can, which is a pretty monster deal. All right, last question for you.
Hold on. Yeah. Because, listen, you bring something up, and I'm not disagreeing, but I think you're bringing something up that's amazing really quick. And here's the difference between the NFL and college. In college athletics, they are ultimately governed via academia. And in the NFL, they are governed by businessmen, okay, and really successful ones at that. And I will just tell you, businessmen are way smarter than the academics in our world. Just period. I'm just telling you right now. Why?
No, I think, look,
that's the truth, guys. What I'm telling you is, like, the academics go out there and they are so thirsty for any revenue and guaranteed revenue that they don't understand how to build the business. The fact that the playoff is a one network deal is so short-sighted that, like, I can't even begin to tell you how short-sighted. One is the point you brought up, is that in the NFL, every network wants the Super Bowl to be successful, so it just perpetuates itself every single year, right? It's like a flywheel. They get it going, and it's really hard to stop, and it just continues to travel down the track. And we don't have that in college football because the major networks outside of ESPN that are involved and invested in the sport, we all just, like, after this weekend, it's just kind of like, okay, good luck. You know, like, what's our incentive at Fox to really make the playoff better? There's none. There's none. That's an incredibly short-sighted outlook from the academics that ultimately run this sport.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you can make that argument on a lot of level, right? I mean, it's gotten better, but to make your point about the lack of business savvy, college football is the only sport that gave away its, conclusions to all these bowl games, right? I mean, it's really kind of crazy when you think about it, like the decision that they made overall to just effectively give it away. It's wild, like you let the Sugar Bowl or the Orange Bowl or the Rose Bowl or whatever else. Like, what makes college football so incredible is the phenomenal campus environments, and then you just take that away and give it away at the end of the year, and it doesn't make any sense. All right, so I said last question. Here it is. What's going to happen at Texas with Tom Herman? What do you think about Urban Meyer? And I know this can change on a day-by-day and almost minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour basis, as all coaching searches can. But Texas has one game left against Kansas. They're going to go 7-3 this year. I mean, it would be a tremendous upset if they lost to Kansas, as bad as Kansas is. So what do you think happens there going forward?
Well, I don't know if they're going to play that game to begin with because Texas paused team activities.
Oh, they did. I can't even keep up. I can't even keep up with all that. So they may not play the game at all.
They might not even play the game at all. Listen, that was an interesting game to do and to call last week, right? I mean, that's Urban sitting on the desk right before the game.
Yeah.
Here's where I sit, and I said this on the broadcast, and I'm gonna make my bed and I'm gonna lie in it. Listen, if they feel like they can go get Urban, and I don't know, I haven't talked to him about it. I don't really want to talk to him about it until I can talk more frankly, publicly about it, because I don't want to know information and feel like I'm hiding it.
Right.
So I don't know what he's going to do. I'm sure. Listen, I'm sure that they've been kicking around those tires. If you can get him, that feels like a no-brainer. Okay, so if you're Texas and you can get him, go do it. And that's going to cost a lot of money, but I think that it'll probably work. It's worked everywhere that he's been. I think he's one of the great coaches in the history of our sport. If not, I think that they would just be changing for change's sake and not changing to be better. I just don't see the coach out there that you're bringing in that you're like, oh, this is markedly better than Tom Herman, who's had 3 straight top 10 recruiting classes and is basically 2-3 snaps of the football from being undefeated this season, right? Like they are building something. I know it's been frustrating. They certainly aren't quote unquote back, but they're much more back than they were under Charlie
Strong. Yeah.
Charlie Strong, excuse me. So, from my seat, there are a couple of truths here that you've got to get into. One, is the program better than it was when Tom got there? Yes. Have they fallen short of expectations? Yes. Is Urban an upgrade? Yes. If Urban doesn't do it, is Tom probably still the guy? Yes. So, and so that's where I sat. At the end of the game, I said, listen, if you can go get him, get him. And if not, let Tom build it. That's what I said almost verbatim, I believe, at the end of the show, and that's kind of where I sit.
That's a super awkward position for Tom Herman to find himself in, right? Where basically Texas may be shopping around to see if they can get Urban Meyer or not. If he says no, they come back maybe and just say, hey, you're our guy, even though that that's not 100% the case, but that's probably potentially where we are. Because otherwise, who else could they get that's anywhere near the Urban Meyer level?
You know what? I don't know. People are like, well, Matt Campbell's a great coach. Well, Matt Campbell's never put together a top 10 class.
Yep.
Right. Like, a recruiting class. So,
and James Franklin would have been an easy answer, but they haven't had a great year at Penn State this year. So what exactly is going to happen there?
I personally believe that the best coach that anybody could get in America, based on his history, the fact that he's learned from his mistakes, and then where he's been, is Steve Sarkisian. I just don't know if Alabama is going to let him get out of Tuscaloosa. I'm sure that they're starting to make promises to him, and Saban's thinking about what his parachute is going to be. I think that they look at Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Washington, and they look at those models and where those programs continued to go, or at least hope to with Washington, where you go from Stoops to Riley and Meyer to Day, and then Chris Peterson to Jimmy Lake. And I'm sure Alabama's thinking to themselves, like, well, how do we keep this on the tracks? Probably do something like Saban to Sark in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really interesting to see what exactly is going to happen there. Joel Klatt, we will talk to you next week. Good luck getting to call that Michigan-Ohio State game and hopefully the Big Ten title game after that.
Oh, I hate you so much. Appreciate the time.